Okay, this poem, The Ruined Maid, when you come across a poem like this, it's interesting because there's something about this poem that's a little bit outside of our grasp of understanding. Okay, it's a dialogue, it's not a monologue. There are regular stanzas that have almost a punchline of the second voice at the end of every stanza, and there's some meaning here you're supposed to understand, and everything rests, so much rests on this word, ruined. And this word in this poem isn't really explained, and um, that's confusing. And that's one of the things that people find really annoying about poetry, is that there are things that go on in it that they don't understand. Now, I would argue that the sounds of the poem already show you a kind of humor, irony, sarcasm, parody that's already present. Um, I think that that's the case, and that makes it a good poem. I think a poem that relies on external readings is ultimately a failure, because if the poem itself can't satisfy, but it rests on something too external, well, then I don't really understand why the poem was written. I mean, look, with all these poems, you're listening to my interpretation, my attempts to try and walk you through what I think's going on in them. But ultimately, if you go to the internet, if you go to study guides, and you just get these explanations, quote unquote, I'm going to give you some quote unquote, explanations for these poems, then you're just going to have this idea that poems are codes, and that if you crack it, you crack the poem, and you'll be fine for the exam or something. That's just utterly the wrong sentiment. That's the wrong way to approach a poem altogether. I was very persuaded by this description that prose is like walking to a destination. We write prose for a purpose. We want to get somewhere. But poetry isn't like walking at all. Poetry is more like dancing. We're not trying to get somewhere, but the act itself is what matters to us. Even when you don't understand what's going on, maybe you can still find something to hold on to that you like. But more important for you as a student, I guess, I'd want you to think about it. When you don't understand the poem, what are you going to do? What kind of questions, what kind of skills have you developed in order to try and understand what's going to happen inside the poem? What language engages and excites you? I really want you to not get over that utter boring teenage thing of saying no and boring and I don't get it and I don't know. And remind yourself of what it means to be a kid, and get your curiosity going, get your gaming going, getting your energy going into a poem and saying, okay, well, how can I figure out what's going on here? And that, for me, is what I think about when I read this poem. Even though that word ruin sits there on my head a little bit, I think it reminds me of, with the best poetry, students, and with almost anything in school, students have to figure out for themselves why they're engaged. And like Sherlock Holmes, stay fiercely with the poem until it yields some meaning to you. The Ruined Maid is a poem that's a dialogue between two girls who haven't seen each other in a long time. One girl, the country girl, seems to dominate most of the conversation. She's just utterly blown away by this girl, Amelia. Amelia, how differently she talks, looks, dresses, speaks. Everything is just utterly different about her from the last time that they saw each other. And Amelia says, well, actually, what's changed for her principally is the fact that she's ruined, and that a girl from the country could never be like her until they ruin themselves as well. I think this is meant satirically and as a joke, and I feel I can stand by that based on the kind of humorous punchline that is offered by Amelia at the end of each stanza, and the way ruined is used, because ruined is, of course, destroyed, denigrated, degenerated is what that means, not fit for purpose. How could she mean that by ruining herself she's been able to achieve all of this? That we would go so far in language, but then we need something else, and this is a little bit of the key to the poem. What does ruined mean? Well, ruined here is in reference to a time where a ruined woman or a fallen maid or a ruined maid or woman was someone who was either a prostitute or possibly someone who was someone's mistress. Now, so ruined actually means sexually in some way. So they're ruined socially, they're ruining maybe their body, their reputation. Now, here's what I want you to keep alive. Is Hardy poking fun at the attitudes of people in his society who think that the only way for a woman to progress financially would be to ruin herself? Is he making fun of, is he satirizing this notion of ruination? Or is he actually poking fun at the girl or the girls themselves who started to valorize trading their sexual morals for financial gain and material? Which one is it for you in this poem? Could it be both? What makes you say so is my real challenge, is going to be what language, what quotations, what images help back up your reading either way. Again, we have an outsider present in this poem. We have characters who are using humor, maybe. We have social criticism that connects this poem to any number of the character and voice poems throughout the